The Cetacean Acoustic Trend Tracking Project, CATT, uses Chelonia FPOD passive acoustic monitoring devices to track dolphin and porpoise population and distribution trends around the UK coastline. Hello, the next video in sequence, the first two looked at the basics of creating and loading the FP1 files, generating the FP3 and really navigating up and down and in and out through the software. In this video we're going to delve a bit deeper. We're going to load a file and start investigating it a bit. So to do that I'm going to make some changes. Whereas normally when we open a file set we open one copy of the FP1 raw data and 3 copies of the output of the train detection algorithm. I'm going to open 2 FP1s here. That will give us a slightly different view. I'm going to go into the Fowey data. So we got FP1, FP1 and 3 FP3s. The bottom one there is frequency. I would like to look at amplitude on the other FP1, and then on these I would like to look at species class, species quality, and in the top one the clicks per second. I'm also not interested in sonar in this one. I'm just going to leave it on high and moderate. I'm going to put the skip 2 up to 512. And I'm also going to go into the files and filters and say that I'm only really interested in the click trains that start at 100 clicks per second. And then I can see some of the longer click trains. I'm going to go down to a 20 millisecond time scale, show from start, and then just start looking through this file. So there's porpoise activity. You can tell that by the color, NBHF color. It's maxed out. I'm going to hit F6 to bring that down a bit. But that looks quite interesting. That looks like a porpoise, possibly social communication going on there. These mushroom shapes that are repeated frequently. So we're looking at about 14.5 seconds there. So that's quite a bit of chatter going on in that pod. One of the nice things about this new software, Nick has built in a feature where we can play back these click trains. Now obviously they're at 120 kilohertz, they're way beyond human hearing. What we can do is select this file and play this back, and what we will hear is a change in pitch that's relative to the change in click rate rather than the change in frequency. So it sounds like this. And that is a really nice way of engaging with people, particularly citizen scientists, members of the public, to show them the sort of things that are happening in the water. We were only beginning to understand what these click trains and particularly the social communication might all mean. So it's a fascinating time to be looking at this stuff. I'm going to go back to 20 milliseconds and I'm going to continue clicking through this file. So we're into some dolphin activity there now. By hitting the down arrow, that will recenter and zoom in. So there's quite a bit of dolphin activity there. I'm going to hit F4 to bypass all my filters. You can see quite a bit more appears. That's because I am filtering out all these lower click rates below 100 clicks per second, and I'm skipping to some quite long click trains. So that's showing me lots of other stuff in there. But I'll go back to 20 milliseconds and keep moving through. More dolphin activity there. More dolphin activity. There's some quite nice big sweeps in there. So let's zoom in on that a bit. So some quite unusual shapes there. Let me play that one as well. Some of the big upsweeps there may be feeding. There may be some foraging there, some looking into the seabed. It really is anybody's guess at the moment, but it is all there to be learnt, really. So I'm going to come out to 20 milliseconds and keep moving through this file. That looks like some more big sweeps there from the dolphins. Let me play that one too. Some big sweeps there. I can see from the colours, and then the bottom here, we've lost that frequency again. Let me put that back on. That these are quite high frequencies. They're these dolphins, but they're clicking very much in that 120, 130 kilohertz range, right up where the porpoises would normally click. We can tell a certain amount from these click trains, given the return time of sound in water travelling at 1500 meters a second. These animals don't really click much less than about 4 clicks per second. We can estimate that when they're doing that, they're echolocating about 180 to 200 meters ahead. When these click rates get right up to several hundred like that, they're looking right at the end of their nose. That's why we assume that when we see a big sweep up like that, it's seen something interesting and it may be closing on a fish that it wants to eat or something. So this may be searching around, trying to lock on to an animal, a fish that it wants to eat. And when it chooses one, it makes a dash for it and zooms at it and snatches it. But again, all guesswork. We're interested to hear any other views on what this might be as well. I'm going to continue clicking through here a bit more. So there's some more dolphin activity. Some big high click rates here, some big sweeps. Oh, that looks quite interesting. There's some interesting dolphin shapes there. Now that is unusual. Whether that's a mixture of feeding and social communication, I really don't know. One thing we can do when we graph this data, and we were doing that before with a standard file set, we can graph just what we're looking at in that screen. So it won't graph the whole file when I hit graph. It will graph just that little bit we're looking at. But because we've changed the default settings here, we actually have 2 FP1s and 3 FP3s. I'm going to have to change what we see in the graph. To do that, I go into display, and over here we can look at graphs. So we've got kilohertz in the 2 FP1s. I want to look at kilohertz in the lowest of the FP3s as well. And we look at the clicks per second in the next one up. So when I graph that, that's the FP3 there. We see a very wide range of frequencies, quite a lot of low frequencies, a modal rate of about 22. And we can see the click rates getting quite high here, and nothing at the lower end. So it can be interesting to look at either individual click trains or encounters to see what sort of frequencies and click rates were happening in there. In some cases, we found some quite unusual results when we do that. Okay, we'll leave it there. All of the data gathered on the CATT project is open source at the Figshare Plus open repository in the project called CATT. The software we use to analyse the data is available at the chelonia.co.uk website called fpod.exe. RDUK was established to set up the CATT project on behalf of Chelonia.